Welcome to Prime Space, a Prime Coaching Academy podcast with your host, Elias. So my friends, I'm so excited here today because for the first time at Prime Space, we have a guest that is besides Amy and I, right? Amy and I are always sharing some of our thoughts here, but I have a guest, and this guest is a dear friend of mine and a fabulous coach, and I think that he has so much to offer us here. Unfortunately, we just have like these 10, 15 minutes. Joe. Hello, Joe.
Hello, Elias. Great to be with you.
Oh my gosh, I'm thrilled that you are going to be sharing your wisdom and experience here with us. For those of you who are listening, Joe is a PCC coach, a professional certified coach with the ICF. He's also a training consultant. But what is unique about Joe that I really want to bring here is that Joe is a motivational interviewing practitioner. Joe is a member of the Motivational Interviewing Network of trainers, MINT. And MINT is the professional organization of motivational interviewing trainers. It's kind of the ICF of motivational interviewing. It's the clearinghouse with the latest motivational interviewing research and practice. Primarily, Joe coaches clinicians in the healthcare industry and human services professionals using motivational interviewing to support them in fostering more collaborative relationships with their patients and clients. A fun fact about Joe is that Joe is also a professional singer and a pastoral musician. You can actually see Joe weekly on TV. He is always singing at the Sunday Mass. You can find out where to see him on the sundaymass.org. So always wonderful to hear Joe sing as well. He has a fabulous voice, and I've had the privilege of accompanying Joe many times. Hello, Joe.
Hello again, Elias, and thank you for that that beautiful introduction. I really appreciate that.
But today, Joe, we are not going to talk about music. Maybe another time we'll talk about music. Today, we are going to talk about motivational interviewing. So, Joe, enlighten us here. What is motivational interviewing?
All right. Well, it's as you know, motivational interviewing is one of my favorite topics. Motivational interviewing is a client-centered communication style that strengthens a person's own motivation for change in an atmosphere of acceptance and compassion. So it's really about drawing out that person's own motivation for change rather than putting it in.
Ooh, I love that. I love that description. Thank you so much. And we can already see, based on that description that you gave, how connected motivation interviewing is to coaching and how much we can perhaps learn from these practices. And that's why I brought you here to talk about this. I just recently did a motivational interviewing course, and I was delighted to see so much of the technique and the learning and the research, the extensive research that has been happening in motivational interviewing, and how can we coaches benefit from that practice. But Joe, can you share with us here a little bit more, like what are what is the history of motivation interviewing? How did this get started?
Yeah, well, it started in the addiction community because traditionally addiction recovery, the approach was one of it was very directive and sometimes even coercive, and so that did not it was not so effective. So someone with an addiction would be kind of told what they needed to do to change, and it just it didn't have great outcomes. And so along came William Miller, who's a clinical psychologist, and he brought what we would describe, what you and I would describe as a coaching approach to those interactions, and used empathic listening and compassion, accepting people as they are, and recognizing their autonomy and their choice in whether or not to change. And so by fostering that atmosphere, the results were much more positive, much more successful. And so over the last 40 years or so, it's now expanded into the mental health field, and expanded from there into coaching, education, the criminal justice system, like law enforcement, definitely social work, but also leadership in organizations. So there are a vast number of individuals and practitioners who use motivational interviewing as part of what they do. So it remains the same, virtually the same, despite how someone is applying it, but it becomes an overlay to what they're doing, whether that's a clinical practice or a coaching practice or whatever.
Yeah, it's fascinating to me to see that motivational interviewing has about the same age as coaching, and to see these two very similar practices, like at the core, right? The resourcefulness of the client, giving the client the choice to make their change, believing in the client's potential. This aspect, both of them are grounded in how these two practices developed parallel and came to be about the same time. It just fascinates me.
Yeah, no, that is so interesting. I agree. I agree. Yeah.
What is unique about motivation interviewing?
So some of the things that are unique about MI is that one of the main things is that the primary driver of a conversation is reflections, or our reflections. And in MI, this is different from how we define reflections in coaching, because in coaching, we tend to think of reflections as kind of paraphrasing back to the client what we heard, and then asking asking them to confirm whether we got that right. In motivational interviewing, we use reflections more strategically, and we make the distinction between simple reflections and complex reflections. And so we can think of simple reflections as stabilizing reflections, or anybody who remembers the old Dragnet detective series, might remember Detective Joe Friday, who would say, in questioning witnesses, he would say, "Just the facts, ma'am." And so it's just the facts, where you stay with what the client said, but it has its place, but the conversation kind of stays where it is. And if that's all you're doing, the conversation is not really going to move forward.
Yeah, I always say that, simple reflections for me almost like stops the timeline of coaching.
Yeah.
We simply repeat what the client is saying. So therefore there is no movement forward. It's just, it stops in time. Yes.
Yeah, exactly. Complex reflections, on the other hand, are going deeper, and we're making a guess at what the client means. So we might name an emotion that they didn't necessarily say themselves, but we're picking it up from their energy or their nonverbal communication, or they're implying it in something that we said. So we're helping them to kind of finish the paragraph or continue the paragraph. And so, we might reframe, we might use a double-sided reflection where we are reflecting both sides of their ambivalence. And so we use these in a strategic way. It's in a very attentive way. And we, with a lot of practice, what we try to do is really get to where we are using more reflections than questions.
And this is what was fascinating to me once you were the one who introduced the whole aspect of motivational interviewing to me. I didn't know anything about motivational interviewing. And I remember that I was so resistant to, I don't know if you remember this, but I was so resistant to reflection. I was like, no, we need to ask a question. Reflection stops the time, because of this idea that simple reflection really is so mundane.
They're not so effective.
Yep. And a complex reflection, which is something that I was never conscious of it. But the more I am conscious of complex reflection, we use complex reflection in coaching all the time. However, we are not specifically taught what that is about and the strategy around complex reflection and how to use it intentionally. When complex reflection happens in coaching, it's almost like by the way it happened, and we are not even aware that we are using complex reflection. So one of the things that I'm so excited about, of course, is that at Prime Coaching Academy, in our Level 2 program, we have a module that is specific about reflection, and we are training our coaches in the distinction between a simple reflection that usually it's just about showing active listening, and complex reflection that is a tool for evoking awareness.
Yes. Yeah, definitely. Complex reflections evoke awareness, because you're offering the clients something that's much richer than simply repeating back what you heard them say.
And Joe, you said something before when we were preparing for this podcast about where simple questioning and reflections happen in the brain. I would love for you to share that point.
Yeah, so it's so interesting because not that I'm a neurologist, but one thing that we know is that questions activate the prefrontal cortex in the brain, and that regulates thoughts and actions and emotions, but which sounds like it's
has its place.
Yeah, it has its place and is useful. But the limbic system is what is activated by reflections. And the limbic system is related to behavior, motivation, and long-term memory. And so when we are activating the limbic system, there's more of a kind of staying power, and especially that motivational piece where the client is able to reflect on what is going to motivate them to make this behavior change.
It sounds to me more transformational.
Yes,
I so appreciate that. Well, Joe, I'm sure that you're going to be back. And more, you're going to share more, because this is a fascinating concept, and I'm fascinated by the intersection of coaching and motivational interviewing, and how much we as coaches, not only in our practices, I hope that we as a profession can learn from motivational interviewing techniques and motivational interviewing concepts, especially how deep research has been done around these techniques, and the approach of motivational interviewing. I hope that we can, as a community, learn more and more about motivational interviewing and incorporate even in our core competencies, because there is so much beauty over there. So we will definitely bring you back here. But Joe, for now, if people are interested in motivational interviewing, where should they go?
Okay, so three things come to mind. Motivationalinterviewing.org, which is our website of the Motivational Interviewing Network of Trainers, and that has information on the 2,000 or more clinical trials that have been done in MI, and it's got some videos and links to all kinds of things. So that's a great place to start. If anyone is interested in books on the subject, one of the main, there are several of them, but one publisher that they might want to explore is Guilford Press, GUILFORD press.com. And that has, some of the main texts of MI. And there's one on MI and coaching in healthcare that's coming out this fall. And they can also contact me through my website, joesimmonscoaching.com. Or if they, if they want to send me an email, I'm at joesimmonscoaching@gmail.com.
Easy to find you.
And I'm happy to engage with anyone who wants to contact me to sort of help them navigate that world.
Yes, and of course, you can learn more about motivational interviewing, especially the skill of reflection, in our Prime Coaching Academy Level 2 program. And Joe, thank you so much for the collaboration. Thank you so much for teaching me about motivational interviewing and really bringing this new perspective, new 3D vision of motivational interviewing and how this can apply to coaching. I really appreciate that.
Well, thank you for inviting me, Elias. It's great to be here, and thank you for your openness to kind of making yourself more aware about MI.
Always something new to learn, right? Everyone, thank you so much for listening, and thank you for reviewing the podcast and giving us a 5-star and sharing this to others. I really appreciate your listening and being here with us. Let us know your thoughts. It's always wonderful to hear from you. Otherwise, everybody, I will see you next time. Take care.